And we are joined by Tim Burgess, who's running for mayor. So go ahead and start with the 2-minute introduction.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here in my home district and again to appear in front of the executive committee. I'm running for mayor because we can't afford 4 more years of conflict and mismanagement in the mayor's office at City Hall. Probably one of the best examples of that is how the police department has floundered under the mismanagement of the current mayor. And I have the skills and the experience to transform the police department and make it one of our most respected, trusted, and honorable institutions in city government. My approach to transportation will be to take care of the basics, fix what we have, finish what we've started, and plan well for the future for all modes of transportation: bike, streetcar, light rail, improved transit. We have great schools in Seattle and wonderful teachers, but way too many of our kids don't graduate from high school, and those that do are often not prepared for college or technical certification and have to do remedial courses and get discouraged. And we know how to turn schools around. We really do know how to do that. We've done that in Seattle. We just need strong leadership and courage to make that happen. I have a progressive record at the City Council using evidence-based practices to help people, and be happy to talk about those and get into those as we have our discussion tonight. But I think it really is time to restore the people's trust and pride in city government, and I'm uniquely prepared because of my life experiences to do that. Running a business, starting it from 1 employee, growing it to 150, working 6 years as an anti-poverty worker in East Africa and South Asia. So I ask for your endorsement in this race and look forward to answering your questions.
Great, thank you. So now we have 5 prepared questions, 2-minute answers to each of these. I think we left off Renee. We need you number 1.
Okay. What is your strategy for implementing, leveraging, and perhaps improving the incentive zoning program to create diverse neighborhoods and assure affordable housing?
So when the mayor sent his proposal for South Lake Union, it maintained the status quo, which means that developers will be able to pay in lieu of providing affordable housing at a fee set in 2001, which has never been adjusted. And I worked with my colleagues first to hire 2 outside consultants to tell us whether or not that was a good strategy or not. And then we have recently passed legislation that I helped craft that will increase those fees dramatically so that we can provide more workforce housing in South Lake Union. At the same time, this next Monday, we'll pass my resolution to expand that group of experts, national experts, who will look at our whole affordable housing program and tell us how we should overhaul it so that we're actually producing more affordable housing in our city. So I've been a real leader on that. I've given specific examples of how we should change current policies, and I'm bringing in, if my resolution passes on Monday, which I think it will, bringing in 3 national experts to help us so that we can overhaul our program and have more affordable housing. What the problem is in our city is that we want to do the right thing with regard to affordable housing, but we haven't actually instituted the progressive policies that many other American cities have done so that we're actually producing enough units.
Great. Clayton, number 2.
In your view, what is the city's role in ensuring equal educational and achievement opportunity in Seattle public schools?
So the city, as you know, doesn't run the schools, but we have a very, very key role to play. And as mayor, I will be a very strong partner with the school board and the superintendent. I'll be a cheerleader. I'll be an enthusiastic advocate, as I have been on the council, for public education. I led the planning process that the City Council put together for the renewal of the Families and Education Levy, which is the city-imposed tax that assists our most academically at-risk kids. We doubled that levy in size, and thankfully the voters agreed. 64% approved that levy in November of 2011. And that is an evidence-based program that uses very targeted, tailored programs for our most academically at-risk kids. half of Seattle's African American kids do not graduate from high school. 4 in 10 of our Latino kids do not graduate from high school. And they need a lot of extra care and support, and the levy does that. But I think the city, the mayor can also do a lot more than just that levy. The city of Los Angeles, the superintendent down there, who actually spent several years in Seattle, is doing a great job as the facilitator of partnerships around the schools, government, the school district there. They have over 1,000 buildings in Los Angeles. It's multiple times larger than our city. And he's been a really effective leader who brings people together to rally around public education. We actually know how to turn schools around. I could cite several. Mercer Middle School, Beacon International Elementary School on Beacon Hill. High poverty rates in those schools. Phenomenal performance with great principals, great teachers who are doing amazing things. We just need to take that to scale. And we've not been able to do that in the city. And I think the partnership with the district that all form will make that happen.
Elizabeth, number 3.
Voters passed the Parks and Green Spaces levy in 2008, yet we've experienced cutbacks in staffing and facilities since then. When the levy is up for renewal next year, how can it be constructed to assure voters that their tax dollars will be allocated wisely?
So in 2008, Councilmember Conlon, Rasmussen, and myself put together and advanced that proposal that we do a levy. Mayor Nichols was opposed. At the time, he was concerned about the ballot measure for the Pike Place Market that was going to appear side by side on the ballot. We went ahead anyway. And I think in retrospect, an error that we made was we made that levy capital investments only and did not include operations and maintenance and those types of things. I wish we hadn't done that because we've had to cut back quite a bit in that area. So I think when we come up for the next year's renewal of that, we'll balance that out. But even a longer term solution is to look at the formation of a metropolitan park district in our city. And that is under review by the council, and that'll be a long-term permanent solution to funding for parks as opposed to periodic fundings going forward. The park system in our city is a real jewel, and definitely we need to get caught back up in our maintenance and repair and those types of things because it has lagged recently.
David, number 4.
There will be 2 types of election reform on the ballot this fall: district elections and public financing of campaigns. Do you support either or both of these, and why?
So the public financing of campaigns is something I do support, and that's running through my committee now. We just had our first public hearing on that this week, I think. Was that this week? Yeah, Monday night. Yeah, that's right. And so we've got a process set up so that that can be on the November ballot in the fall. I was on the city's Ethics and Elections Commission for 12 years, 5 years as chair. And during my first years on the commission, we had public financing of campaigns in Seattle. And so I played a role of doling that money out to the qualified candidates who should receive it. And then the legislature inserted a little phrase in the state law, and it was taken away. So I hope we get that back. I do not favor the district election proposal. If you look back at city history, between 1889, when we started as a city, and the early 1920s, we experimented with several forms of government, including districts. At one point, the city council had over 40 members. Don't think we want to go back to that. But in the 20s, we shifted to the system that we have today, and I think it served us very, very well. The arguments made by the proponents of districts that it will result in higher turnover of incumbents, just look at the King County Council, that does not happen. That it'll result in more minority representation, I don't think will happen, and certainly has not happened in other jurisdictions where they've shifted to districts. But what it'll do in Seattle is it will pit neighborhoods against neighborhoods, and it will give the mayor much more power, because the mayor will be able to pick off a couple of key district council members and form coalitions, whereas now you have 9 council members you can go to. Under that circumstance, you'll have 1. So I do not think that's a good idea. Voters of Seattle have considered it 4 times before and resoundingly rejected it, and I hope they do again.
Elizabeth, number 5.
Police chief. What are your specific recommendations for selecting a new chief and restoring public confidence in the police department?
This is one of the major issues we face in our city. And as I said before, I think I'm uniquely qualified to transform our police department. I said in January, shortly after I started my campaign, that I would replace the police chief. I'm glad the mayor finally agreed with me. But not just the police chief. I think some of the top senior commanders of the department need to be changed as well. The 2 most important people in the city to affect police transformation are the mayor, who, according to the city charter, is the chief law enforcement officer, and the chief of police. I will look outside the state of Washington for our next chief of police. I want someone who's known nationally as a police reformer, who will have the respect of our officers and also the respect of the community. We need to up our game in the police department, and I think we can. The overwhelming majority of our officers, detectives, and the civilians who work in the police department want to do the right thing. They want to serve with distinction. They just need really strong, decisive leadership in order to do that. Back a 1.5 years ago, I published a paper, policy paper, on a new philosophy of policing in our city, 9 specific recommendations about new approaches to law enforcement and criminal justice in our city. I would obviously move to implement those if the citizens elect me as mayor. But this is a major, major issue in our city. We want a good police department. We want them to be effective. Every neighborhood needs good policing. But we need to be able to do it constitutionally, fairly, and with great respect for the citizens in every single encounter they have. And I'm the guy that can deliver that kind of transformation and change in our police department.
Great. So now we'll open up to follow-up questions from the executive board. These are 1-minute answers. I have a question, and then John. So we'll ask people who they think they might support the mayor. I either hear a one-name answer, I have no idea yet answer, or sometimes I hear most often either Tim or Ed. Why you not Ed?
I get that question a lot myself. I think Ed is a great legislator. He's served the city well in Olympia, and he ought to continue in that role. I think what's important is the mayor is really the CEO of a large corporation that has 10,500 employees. I think it's important that the mayor know how to run things. As I mentioned earlier, I started a company with 1 employee, grew it to 150, ran it successfully for 20 years. Our headquarters was here, had an office in Atlanta, London, and Paris. I'm the only candidate running that has that kind of background. The police issue, I think, is critically important. I understand what it's going to take to transform our police department, and they've been floundering now under the current mayor. We don't want that floundering to continue in the future. And finally, I understand city government. I've been there as an employee, almost 8 years, as a police officer back in the 70s, 6 years on the council. I'll hit the ground running on day one and be able to work effectively.
By way of background, Tim, you serve on the investment committee of the city's pension fund.
Yes.
I serve on the investment advisory board. Our 2 legislators have filed legislation for the state to take over the city's pension system. I'm wondering what your view is on that.
I asked Representative Carlisle to withdraw that legislation, which he did. We do have a problem with the pension system. Our actuarial valuation is not being achieved. We're funded at about 66% or so, and we should be at least 80%. That's kind of the national average that you want to be at or higher. We've made some minor adjustments to this point in terms of the contribution level that employees make and the city makes. We've adjusted interest payments, and we are engaged with our city coalition of unions about what are the long-term fixes we need to do in that. But I believe strongly in public service and public employees. We want to maintain the defined benefit system we have, but we do have to pay attention to our fiscal responsibility there and make some adjustments going forward.
Clayton, Elizabeth, sir.
Could you, as a follow-up question, could you tell us something specific about how you would tackle the problem of training police? It's been a concern for a long time.
So one possible solution there is to reestablish our own police academy. We did that for many, many decades. We now send our officers to the state academy. That's an issue I think we'll have to study to see how we would do that, but that's one possible consideration. I think the training, the recruitment, the training, the supervision, and the promotion of our officers needs to be looked at very holistically. Because it's not just the initial recruitment and training. It's what happens when those officers are moving through the ranks of the police department is very, very critical. And I would love to see some adjustment there. So we're rewarding innovation and we're rewarding constitutional policing that is very, very community-driven and community-focused. There are great examples of police departments around the United States that are soaring in effectiveness and community support because they're paying attention to these fundamentals.
Elizabeth and Sarah?
How do you plan to handle the coal train issue?
Well, the council is unanimous in our opposition to coal trains. We've passed a resolution on that. We're urging the Army Corps of Engineers to do a very comprehensive EIS process. It would be a disaster for our city to have those coal trains come through the city. Not only environmentally, but there's real blockage that occurs in traffic and access to the waterfront, especially at the north end by Broad Street when the trains come out of the tunnel. That presents some public safety issues for responding to the waterfront in emergencies by the fire department and police department. So there's lots of factors there. I think city government is pretty united in opposition to the coal trains.
Sarah?
Can you talk a little bit about why you supported the aggressive panhandling legislation, and then also just address concerns raised in regards to the fact that it's somewhat redundant, that it could be applied unevenly, and that there could be issues presented in regards to homeless people's access and a civil infraction to the train?
That measure, which the city council passed, but the mayor vetoed, was actually a progressive piece of legislation to begin a shift in how we deal with aggressive solicitation in the city. I would just remind you that all of the homeless providers downtown, not the advocates, but the actual people on the ground assisting the homeless, supported that legislation because they knew that their clients were often victims of that kind of aggressive solicitation. We still have a problem. I think all of us would agree that we want our streets to be safe and orderly. That was an attempt to begin a process toward a new approach to those kind of problems. Didn't work. So we'll have to come up with others.
Time for one more question. I was wondering if you could just, actually, sorry.
Well, I'm just wondering if you could flesh out a little bit more about the Metropolitan Park District that I think you mentioned.
Well, King County has one for all of the county. It's still under study by the council, but it would basically be, it's property tax levy based, a lift in the property taxes, but it would not have to be renewed every 7 years or every 9 years. And that money would be dedicated and go specifically to maintenance, acquisition, all of the work related to our parks. But we haven't finished our review and analysis of that yet, so I don't have all the final details on that, but that's one of the concepts we're looking at for a long-term solution to parks funding.
Thanks.
All right, so we're about out of time. If you want to take 30 seconds for a closing statement.
Thank you. Obviously, I would love to have your endorsement, and appreciated your questions. And it's a pretty crucial election. It's very, very important that we shift and not continue the kind of conflict and mismanagement that we've had. And I think I'm uniquely qualified to serve and serve well as your mayor. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.